Right now, you might feel like making friends is harder than it's ever been in your life. But what if I told you that right now, this moment in history is the easiest it's ever been to make new friends and find deeper connections? I'm Isaiah. I've spent countless hours learning about connection, reading books, reading studies, and also using those things in my own life so that now I'm the type of person who can make friends anywhere I go. So in this video, I'm going to explain all the ways that it's easier right now than it's ever been in history to make new friends and make deeper connections. And then what you need to do to take advantage of that in your own life and make amazing, deep, and meaningful friendships. So why is it easier to make friends now than it's ever been in history? First reason is one of the main reasons I even started this channel in the first place. Now more than ever, people, all of us, are craving human connection. It comes at a time where we have been both the most connected that we've ever been in life with technology and social media, but the least connected we've ever been, where we aren't really interacting on a human level. We're sending likes, we're sending comments, we're sending messages, but we're not talking to each other. We're not relating to each other. We're not just being in the same spaces together. Human connection is so important to us. In fact, it is actually one of the core needs of a human. It is right above survival, as in like literal shelter and a roof over your head. Social connection and having strong bonds is right above that. That is how important it is to have. But in recent times, we have been missing out on this. For example, 30% of Americans feel lonely at least once a week. And it's not people who are in their 50s, 60s, 70s like you might expect, although they're feeling it too. It's also people in their 20s, their 30s, the people I'm making this channel and these videos for. So because of this, when you try to approach people and when you try to bring that connection to their lives, you're going to be received a lot more readily because you will be the answer to the thing that people have been craving. The next reason is that it's been easier than it's ever been before to find shared interests. So having a shared interest with somebody is one of the best ways in order to make a friendship because it's something you can build and start that bond off of. And now in the world we live in, you could find virtually any hobby, anything, any interest, and find a group that you can then be part of. It's as simple as typing in on meetup.com or on Google Maps or just Google in general, and you'll find endless options of whatever hobby you're into, from rock climbing to yoga to public speaking to watercoloring or art. It's all there. I live in Trinidad and Tobago. It's a really tiny set of islands in the Caribbean. There's only 1.5 million people who live here. And when I Google for these activities, there are a ton of options, right? So if you live in a bigger country, if you live in a bigger city, there's absolutely no excuse. Not to mention, once you actually meet people at these hobbies, at these locations, because of phones, because of FaceTime, because of text, you can then stay in contact with them and continue interacting with them to turn that spark of meeting somebody into a deep and meaningful friendship going on into the future. And the final thing, and probably the most important thing that I want to mention, is that nobody is putting in the effort, or at least not as much as you had to in the past. But now with social media, with technology, we are a lot more used to becoming numb and allowing ourselves to be numb and spend hours on end doom scrolling or hours watching Netflix or all these kind of things, which feel nice, but really don't give us a deep and meaningful and fulfilling life. I'm not saying you can't do it at all, but really, if you can choose one, doom scrolling or having a group of friends who you hang out and spend time with and you share deep and meaningful connection with, which one would you really choose? And I think in that little thought experiment right there, you're already starting to see which one is most important, but at the same time, which one we tend to wait more and spend more time on in today's day and age. And a big thing I think that does is we don't feel the need to put ourselves in places to meet people, or when we're in places to meet people, we don't feel like we need to approach or reach out to those people and try to make friendships. Nobody is doing it. Barely anybody makes these bold moves of walking up to somebody, saying hi, trying to get to know them, and making a friendship out of it. And I get it, right? Like, that is completely scary. That is a scary position to put yourself in, and it feels kind of risky because what if the person makes fun of you? What if you get embarrassed? What if you fumble over your words? All of these things are risks and they can happen, but these are fears that are pretty unfounded. If you go into a situation and you fumble or you say the absolute wrong thing or you mess up, and trust me, I've done this many, many times, you don't instantly die, right? In fact, the worst case that happens is you have an awkward moment, you shuffle off, and then the person forgets in a week, if not in a day later. You know, it's not the end of the world. But it is a risk. But at the same time, things that are worth a reward, things that are important, require a level of risk. So you still need to go out and get it. But because barely anybody is doing these things, it actually is an advantage. Because that means if you are one of the very few people to do these things, to go out into these spaces, to make the first step and try to make a friend, you are going to seem so much more cool, so much more interesting as a result. Because you're going to look bold. You're going to look like you have so much courage. And people are going to find that insanely attractive and insanely refreshing. Because you're putting yourself out there. You're being vulnerable. You're making the choice to be vulnerable and accepting the risks, seeing what happens. And people are going to really, really respect you for that. Small story for myself, a lot of the time when I'm in public or I go to classes or these kind of things, I try to just spark up conversations with strangers and see what could happen. And the most common thing I hear from people is that, like, they say, wow, do you just do that all the time? Are you able to just go up and say hi to people? That's really cool. And I think that's a testament to how few people do it. And all it requires is taking that first step and being courageous. And once you take that first step, you've instantly put yourself in the good books for that person. Because at the end of the day, people want to be around exceptional people. And if you can make yourself exceptional by just taking the first step, by just putting yourself in that risky situation, that's a cheat code. They're gonna think you're that much more interesting. So those are the 3 reasons, but what does that mean for you? What should you change in your life? What should you do differently to start taking advantage of this and actually making some friends or actually making deep and meaningful relationships in your life? So the first thing is put yourself out there. Put yourself in actual situations to meet people. Join a class or spend more time out in the world, in coffee shops, in libraries, these sorts of things. And when you're there and you see somebody who you find interesting, make the first step. Make the first move towards them. You don't have to have insane social skills, but as long as you approach it in a positive and welcoming way, you're going to set yourself up to be ahead of 99% of people, because 99% of people are not making that first step. So go out there, start conversations, just say hi to people, compliment their shoes. It doesn't have to be massive steps, but it could be small things, and you'd be very, very surprised at how receptive people are to you. Because at the end of the day, like I said, we are craving connection. So when you start putting those feelers out there into the world and being positive and being friendly, you are going to get that same energy back. A lot of people want this. A lot of people you interact with will just want to be your friend off the bat, and some people won't. But at the end of the day, those type of people aren't the ones you want to connect with anyways, so don't take it too seriously. Another thing is that you want to be as open and vulnerable and honest as you can possibly be, both with yourself and with the people you're going to be interacting with. At the end of the day, you've watched this far in because you want to make new friends, and that is okay. That is completely fine. In fact, it is the most human thing you could want. So when you're interacting with people, don't be afraid to tell them that. Like, hey, I thought you were interesting, I came over here and talked to you, have a little bit of a conversation with them, and then at the end say, hey, is it cool if I grab your number? Because I'm looking for new friends, I'm trying to establish a new friend group, and you seem like a really cool person. Is that something you'd be down with? You'd be very surprised, again, how many people say yes, how many people would be like, no way, me too, right? So be honest, put yourself out there, be vulnerable, because it's that vulnerability that really does attract connection and make you turn a stranger into a friend. At the end of the day, I'm not saying it's the easiest thing in the world. It's going to require a little bit of effort, but nothing worth achieving, nothing worth getting is easy, right? It all requires some level of effort. But the thing about right now, in this time you're living in, is that it has never been easier, because tiny steps, tiny changes you make in your world right now can lead to some massive differences in the people you meet and the experiences you have in your life. So if you like learning about making meaningful connections, that is what this entire channel is about. So make sure you like and subscribe to check my next video, because the next video is all about how to initiate that interaction and start and hold conversations that help you turn that stranger into a friend.